like uh, we stop. Thanks.
Yes, very good
I,
questions. I can't answer them in the 2 minutes that I have to leave, but I will summarize by saying the healing of the body, mind, gut, and whole person is complicated, and it is an art as well as a science. We have a lot yet to learn in the science of bioenergetics, biochemistry, and human behavior. As we build and restore trust in human beings helping other human beings rather than going to war all the time and aggravating conflict. I think there's opportunities for healers, educators, and practitioners of all kinds to join forces. And some of the disciplines that you mentioned, the degree programs, the respected at WHO would include physician practices, nursing practice, social workers, nutrition specialists, and psychiatry, spiritual guides. We have to find a way to leverage the goodwill understanding of all these different fields within a digital platform or conversation spaces because everyone the best answers come at the local level and each individual, if we follow and respect human rights, indigenous or otherwise, we will have to honor and live in awe and wonder of what are these codes of conduct and core values that we want to lead change by. And the UN Social Development Summit that just finished was a call to action that we need to open up and share these deep experiences and come to new levels of peace and goodwill that you mentioned. I think it's all possible. I think we have to start with a shared understanding of how we get to trusted information and then a safe place and time to practice what um, Mr. Ahmed was saying about deep listening and leaders. Young leaders want to make a positive difference, and we need to make sure all the tools are in place to have the wisdom connect for public purposes, but also for uh, economic viability and sustainable development. So, yeah, I'll be happy to share more by email and on WhatsApp. And sorry, I have to leave to my conference. The young fellows are presenting on some of their case studies that they've done with medical justice in advocacy. So I will try to bring that information forward. And congratulations on going to DC, working with Bill. And I look forward to co-creating the future we want.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much for at least being able to be with us a little bit today, Ashok.
Yeah,
And
thanks, Bill.
hopefully we'll talk later today.
We will. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye. Okay, I'll welcome here to Early Birds. I get the impression some thought the hour time difference uh, had different interpretations, but it's now a couple of minutes after 9. As usual, wait just a couple of more minutes, and then we will get the show on the road. In the meantime, anybody have anything they would like to just say? Let's use this early time. Ingrid, I have a question for you. Did you get a chance to look at the Gemini? I sent you a video pointing out a number of new Gemini features. Did you get a chance to look at that?
No, I haven't. I need
Uh,
to.
yes, I think here, although although that's a little more than a week ago now, so it's a little bit out of date. This stuff is moving so fast, and but we'll be talking about a couple of new things, but especially with the Google family of products. They're so broad and they cover so many bases that we can only touch on a few of those that are that I think are most likely to be of interest to people on our Saturday sessions. But I think it's really valuable. There's a couple of people that give summary updates of what's available in ChatGPT or in the Google family, or with Claude or Perplexity or even Grok. And it's so hard to keep up with them. But that's one person that I thought did a pretty good job. So if you get a chance, definitely look at that.
Okay, and I have one comment to make
Sure.
because this session today is just perfect for a friend of mine who I invited, and he might come a little later. But he works for International Paper, and his whole department in IT, and his whole department got notice as of February. They're all going to be gone. It's starting.
It is starting, and you know, we hear people. Some people are saying, "Oh, AI can't do this, so don't worry, it's not possible." But then we're seeing here whether it's Amazon or UPS that are doing layoffs in the tens of thousands, and when we look at the capabilities of AI, there's a lot of people that look and say, well, AI didn't do that as good as some human did, or AI didn't do that as good as some human did. But we have to remember with AI, today is the worst AI is ever going to
No,
be from now
not
on.
yet. Not yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. And so this is why Ashok mentioned the recent World Summit for Social Development that took place the week before last now in Doha. And the what I have heard, it's there's not been a lot of outcome coming out of that that's visible. It's been very low key. That's opposed to the first World Summit that took place in Copenhagen in 1995, which was the largest assembly of world leaders in history. And but The Secretary General, when he called for this second summit, I think it was in 2021, he said, well, we haven't delivered on those original goals from
Yeah.
1995, which were very much centered around the idea of good jobs development. You know, that's why we have the Millennium Development Goals, now the Sustainable Development Goals. It's all centered around development. And the reason for that is because the assumption has been that development, especially in the developing countries, we have to close the development gap so that they can have jobs. Because if we share the jobs around the world, we reduce inequalities, we reduce poverty and hunger and so forth. But The leadership in governments and international agencies seem to always be solving the problems of today, which are for the most part the problems of yesterday, and not really paying attention to the things that are likely to change it in the near future. And I think I mentioned in our last meeting that we had that for every dollar being spent for social improvement around the world, there's $34 being spent to increase productivity and efficiency, and essentially eliminate jobs. And so it's really important. That's not going to stop. I don't believe, at least. I don't believe it's going to stop, and we can get into. I'm very interested. Anybody who thinks that there's going to be jobs continuing into the future for most people, I'm very interested to hear what you have to say because I don't think that's going to be the case. And what that means is it's super, super important that the world has a plan of how we can peacefully transition to a future world that is not based on human labor, where incomes are not based on human labor. And I really wish that had been the focus for this conference, the beginning of November. But hopefully the world will wake up because it's not, we don't have decades to solve these problems at the speed at which this stuff is coming. You have to remember, it's just 3 years, not even 3 years, that ChatGPT hit the scene. And we still have more than 4 years to go until 2030. So imagine here, and things are accelerating. So imagine if we've come this far in 3 years, how far we're likely to be 4 years from now in the future. Okay. So anyway, I've started the recording and let's get going. Ding, I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, the go-to place for those who are crazy enough to think they can change the world, the whole world, and daring enough to try. And I declare this meeting on 15 November 2025 to be open. Our topics for today, I'm going to just very briefly give you a little rundown of why we couldn't hold a meeting last week, and then go into the things that have happened in the last 2 weeks, especially, but even looking back, because some of the things that happened 3 and 4 weeks ago were not obvious, they weren't big announcements and they weren't big broadcasts. But then we're going to talk about some really, really big ones that happened just yesterday. Yesterday, and now this coming week, we're expecting some very, very big things to take place, and we'll be talking about that. So it's a little bit here, a catch up, a little bit of a review, and what the implications. What does that mean? What does it mean for society? What does it mean for if you're somebody who says, okay, where should I aim my career, my job? Or if you've got kids and you're wondering, where should my kids aim their job? Or in my case, my grandchildren. Okay, where are they? They're 18, and where's their future going? So these are to me important topics, and we definitely need to explore it. And we need to explore from a difference between what's likely to happen in developed countries and what's likely to happen in developing countries, because we have two very different situations going on there. So those are the thoughts for today's topic. Does anybody want to add anything to those or add any comments at this point? Please. Okay, then in that case, I'm just going to very, very briefly point out last week. Last week, I was on Saturday, I was en route to a Future We Want Model UN conference in Washington, D.C. And the reason I didn't announce further in advance that we would cancel last week is because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to make it until the very last minute. And but I'm very glad that I went there. I had an opportunity to speak to some really, really super smart and engaged young people. We had a huge presentation group from Azerbaijan, a big group from Georgia, from Ghana. We had students from other parts of the world, around the world. These conferences, to me, always reinforce my faith in that our young people are going to be able to deal with the issues that are coming. But we have to realize, those of us of older generations, we bear a responsibility not to increase the mess we're leaving people. And as I say to them, either they're going to take up and take over and start shaping their future, or they're going to live with the future our generation's leaving behind. And I don't wish that on anyone. So that was what was going on last week. And then I had the opportunity to meet with Ambassador Dennis Antoine, who's been a good friend. He might be hiding here because he attends these sessions usually without without letting us know he's on the session. But we had an opportunity. He's the former ambassador to the UN, a former ambassador to the US, and a former ambassador to China. So he's really had the opportunity to see what's going on in the major players in the world. And he was also the dean of ambassadors to the Organization of American States, which was the first international organization of its type in the world, and incredibly impressive presence there in Washington. Okay, so that was what the situation was last week. But in the meantime, here we saw so much happening with agent technology, with people building incredible use cases to get AI to do things. And we had so many new releases that were never announced, or they were announced in such low key that most of us who spend most of our waking hours trying to track what's going on there missed a lot of these changes. So I want to talk a little bit about what is coming there. But let's start off with maybe the biggest announcement of today. Yesterday, OpenAI released ChatGPT 5.1. Now it's 5.1, and you might say, well, and hardly anybody knew. I think Sam Altman announced it that day or the day before that, hey, 5.1 is here. But it's a much bigger change than we might have thought. There's a number of capabilities in 5.1 that are different. It pays much more attention to following your instructions. If you say in your prompt, limit it to so many words, do this, to make it like that, don't include this, it pays more attention to what you give for instructions. It's also got much more of a personality. Some people say, well, it's what they thought ChatGPT 5.0 was going to look like. It brought back the personality of ChatGPT 4.0, and but it seems much smarter. It gives more thoughtful answers to complicated questions, and it's much faster for simple questions. It's able to discern when to go into depth and when a simple answer suffices. It seems that it's also much more detailed on target to what you're looking for. And within that, there's a lot of changes. We know ChatGPT has had memory for a while. Um, I, I, I'm I'm really getting impressed here when I have been chatting with ChatGPT in the last couple of days, and it brings in well, you got to remember what you did here a couple of months ago. And even though I didn't say anything about that in that conversation, it remembers what I was saying and talking about here months earlier. There is a time limit when that stuff goes away, but it's very impressive that it keeps track of things for a fairly long time. So this was, I think, a week or two ago. Nobody even had an inkling that there was going to be a 5.1. There was already rumors coming 6.0 by the end of the year, and that was already getting people going and saying, "Oh, wow, that's going to be impressive." But the thought is here that it looks like Gemini 3.0 from Google will be released this coming week. That's the rumor. And that's such a big announcement. It looks like OpenAI wanted to steal the thunder a little bit from Google, and that's why they brought out this 5.1. But you may not know it. If you did anything with ChatGPT yesterday, you have to ask it. what model version are you? And it comes back and says, oh, I'm part of 5.1. So that's the only way you know whether you're using 5.1 or not, at least on a cell phone. Um, that's pretty big news. In Gemini, there's a number of big changes coming too, but like always, it comes in some parts of the world before others. So they released one of the biggest changes now. Most of you know I'm a big fan of Notebook LM. And in Notebook LM, they have added deep research. So you can go in and say, I want you to do a deep research on this, and then include that results of that into my Notebook LM that I will now carry on further with. But the test is they decided that it's going to be rolled out initially only in some parts of the world. Now, until now, I think everybody's sort of gotten used to when things are rolled out early, they're rolled out in the US. Well, this time they decided to roll it out early in places that are really hotbeds of massive usage, like New Zealand and Taiwan and China, or not China, pardon me, Japan, and two other small countries. So apparently they're testing it there, but we should, in a very short time, be gaining access to these new changes to Notebook LM. Other changes here that were somewhat subtle is on Notebook LM is that if you ask for flashcards or if and you want to get flashcards, you can now download these and import them into all kinds of tools so that when you're mobile underway, you can be testing your memory on issues that are important to you. And of course, we know one of the nice things about flashcards are you can sort of keep working the ones that you know you put aside, and the deck of those that you're trying to comprehend gets smaller and smaller. So that is something new. And then the quiz capabilities that you can create quizzes is there. But on all of these, on the podcasts, on the video overviews, on the quizzes, on the flashcards, all of these, you have special instructions. So, or customization, they call it, and you can shrink the focus area down. So, if you're working on just one chapter of a textbook and you're trying to learn that, or you've said, okay, gather for me all the latest research on some disease or all the latest research on fusion electricity generation. And now you can say break this into chunks. Tell me about what the basic problems are. Tell me about what the different directions of research are going. Tell me about where the progress is, or tell me about forecasts as to when we can expect to reach certain milestones. And you can do that in the chat mode. And the thing about it is you can take that now and export that, drop it into Gemini, click on Canvas, and then say, turn this into an executive PowerPoint briefing. And it will do it like that and really do high quality. Some of the capabilities, the ways people are using these tools, and because some of you may not be familiar with Notebook LM, the main thing about Notebook LM is it basically doesn't hallucinate because you've curated the body of knowledge to eliminate all the frivolous comments. You've ignored those. Even if you go out there and say, please discover for me reliable sources of knowledge about whatever the topic is that you're interested in, you're not likely to get the comments that people made, the sort of wacko comments out there. It will start off with like peer reviewed. academic papers or publications in serious journals and the like, um, or tutorials from universities and the like. So that's the basic of what it's doing, but it's amazing, as I say, what one is able to do with that now. I'd like to hear, have any of you tried anything recently using Notebook LM or Gemini, or the latest ChatGPT features, including agent mode? Agent mode is mind-boggling. When I was heading to Washington and I didn't know if I was going to be going there from the New York area or from the Charlotte, North Carolina area. And so I had to check out what my transportation options were from both ends. And I went into agent mode on ChatGPT, and I said, "Well, look, find some bus stops for the different bus companies. Find bus stops that are north of Charlotte that have direct bus transportation to Washington, and find out what times of day they leave, how long the duration of the trips are, and what they cost." And then I watched it, and it went to the websites. It opened each website to the bus companies, went in, filled in the form that says what's the destination, where are you starting from, and it did it for different cities, and then said what are the bus options, the schedule options, and it did that for multiple bus companies, and then turned it all into a nice fancy report for me saying that, okay, I have this option if I'm going from that city, and I've got this option if I'm going from this other city, for each of the bus companies, and what the comfort level was of the buses, how long it would take, and so forth. And I'm watching this. I'm watching it go through screen after screen after screen, filling in all the information. At one point, it asked whether you're a human or not. And sure enough, it went and said, "Yeah, I'm a human," and it managed to get through that step and move on. So if you haven't tried that, you really want to do that. The way that works is you simply go into ChatGPT, and you down at the bottom on the left side, you have that option to be able to select what mode, and look down here after study mode and just chat and so forth. There's a new mode there called agent mode. While I'm on ChatGPT, there's another new mode that I don't have access to because it's also only released into some of these small Asian countries, and that is group chat. You can now go and say, "Oh, we want to do brainstorming. I'd like to invite ChatGPT to be a member of a couple of us getting together, and we're just going to chat about something." And you just invite ChatGPT to just be party to that discussion. And this, I think, is going to be a real game changer. Imagine here if you're studying and you got a study group going, and you've got ChatGPT in there to remind you, well, wait a minute, guys, what about this? Did you think of that? Or, I don't, that answer, wait a minute, shouldn't you have included this? Or isn't this important? So you can expect that's coming very, very quick. While I'm hitting some highlights, there's another one out there from Copilot from Microsoft. And Microsoft is using Chat GPT 5.1 behind the scenes. But what they've added here now is total voice control. So you can say, you can go into PowerPoint, for example, and you just talk to it about, "Oh, make me a PowerPoint. I want to convince some people about this or that, or I want to inform the people about this or that," and it will generate graphics and graph charts and all the kinds of things on its own to do what you're trying to accomplish. So that's a pretty amazing uh, um, example here of what's coming. I expect here around the end of the year, by the end of the year, or beginning of early next year, we're going to see the chat, all the chat, really go voice. And if you have not used advanced voice in ChatGPT or Gemini Live in Gemini, where you no longer have to key in things, you can just talk. Now, I do realize that some people prefer typing in because it forces them to think more clearly what you're trying to accomplish. I find it's very interesting when I'm in chat mode and I'm talking to these versions. I'll start a sentence and midway in the sentence, I'll change my mind or I'll add a thought. It would be probably pretty disconcerting to a human trying to listen to me to keep straight all the different twists and turns I do in my because I start talking before I think. You're probably all used to that now by now, and uh, ChatGPT does an amazing job with it. And but you can see it right now in Copilot if you've got Copilot. I don't know if you need the paid version or not, but it's really uh, making a huge difference. Finally, on the new front, most of you do not have access to ChatGPT Atlas yet. That is the browser, the artificial intelligence browser from OpenAI. It's only available on Macintosh operating system right now, and but the estimates are around the end of the year it will be available for Windows and Android and for iOS. So if we look at that group of changes, the idea that you can now talk about to your system for anything, and that includes here, I think with the Copilot, you can talk obviously to the Edge browser, but you can talk to basically your operating system in Microsoft and any of the new Copilot enabled computers that have been coming out this year. That my understanding, I don't have one of those yet, but my understanding is that is an incredible experience out there. But that ability to just talk about anything to ChatGPT, to include it in your conversations with your friends and family. If you got the family together and you're saying, "Hey, can we get a family reunion going? Where should we go? Where should we meet? What should we do?" To be able to have ChatGPT right in the discussion with you, coming up with ideas or pointing out things that ideas that have glitches that might not make them easy to work or more difficult for certain family members than others. So those are that ability. I've been talking for a while now. What happens when AI as a companion is there? It's a companion, it's a mentor, it's a tutor, it's your best friend, and your confidant that's with you 24 by 7, that you can talk to about anything. And it remembers you, it knows you inside and out, and it's able to advise you on basically everything you do in life. And it's able to even warn you about things because it can see and hear even better than you can about things that are going on around you that you should be aware of. So if you're going and jogging in the park at night, to be able to alert you that there's perhaps some character on the vicinity that is you want to avoid or whatever. And of course, the other big thrust that's taking place is the ability for AI to act in your name, to be able to make purchases for you, to be able to book flights or restaurant reservations, to just do things that you want done. between the new AI browsers. Uh, some of the example cases there are just they're just mind-boggling. So I think I've hit most of the new developments that are going the directions where we're at. Does anybody have any thought about these directions in general, where we might be at the beginning of 2026, given the pace that we're at right now, where we might be in capabilities, and what that means for us as individuals, but also what does it mean for us as society? I know, Ingrid, you pointed out earlier before we officially started the call about some friends of yours that work for a major company that is making some changes here in the next couple of months. But perhaps you might want to just repeat that for the others on the call, and then we can just add in anything you're thinking about these new developments, please.
Yeah, so I just heard from a really good friend of ours who is a programmer and is working for international paper that his whole department has been laid off as of February. I mean, they are allowing them to take as many classes in their field as they can and pay for it, but the whole department is going to be gone as of February. And that's just like what you said when you sent us the email. I mean, the WhatsApp companies are starting to just already let go of their staff.
Mhm. Yes, anybody want to add any other observations on the job front? Okay, the one I think that shook a lot of people up was Amazon's announcement the week before last, that they were laying off 14,000 people, and they stated explicitly that it was because of AI. But in reality, it's what we're hearing. It's not 14,000; it's 30,000. And we had UPS. I think a week or so before that announced that they were laying off some 40 or 45,000 people. There's a lot of push. You see a lot of schools saying, protect yourself, go learn AI. You have to learn AI. But then we see Meta just released, I think it was 6,000 AI engineers, um, because we're discovering that one of the things that AI is better than humans at is building AI solutions. So it doesn't seem that there's any place that people can go that we could say is safe from that change. Now, as I've said, you've got people like Sam Altman uh, and many of the others who are pushing AI very fast. They're saying that because they're saying we have a unique opportunity we never had before. Until now, for thousands and thousands of years, the whole mechanism to keep society running was the idea that each person contributes some form of labor, or whether it's mental labor, physical labor, whatever, to society, and they get compensated. So you do something for person A does something for person B, and person B does something for you. But the economy runs on the idea that it's human labor that advances the world, that makes the world run. And now we have an opportunity that no, it's things that humans built that can take over and become independent, and they can provide all the things that we need. We've had that actually for 150, 200 years with capitalism, with the basic idea that people built machines. They built tractors or whatnot, and they sell you the tractor, but the tractor is the one that can produce a lot of the products that we need, and rather than human labor. So human labor shifted a little. But now we're coming with these general purpose machines that are able to do a lot of variations of things on their own. They can observe what's going on. Some of the latest robots are being trained by watching YouTube videos. And so, but the opportunity is here that they're saying is this could free up humans from having to do labor that they don't like simply to survive. So there's a lot of studies that show 80% of workers hate their jobs. And we have the potential that if the robots and the AI are doing all the work, and so there's no compensated work for humans. We have to come up with a different income model, and that might be some sort of a universal basic income or some kind of sovereign funds like you get where Norway is saying, okay, the oil in the North Sea belongs to all the population and we share the benefits across everybody. That may expand to a lot of things, all the natural resources to say, no, that doesn't belong to the individual that owns that surface piece of land. It belongs to humanity. It belongs to the world. And we share all the benefits of all the raw resources, our natural resources. The same could end up being the case with productivity, the ability, the means of producing whatever it is we need or distributing whatever it is we need, that those become a shared resource. And so all humans share in that. And that means that humans are no longer tied to physical labor to survive, to have something to eat, a roof over their head. Those things could just simply be provided by all the AI and robots. And that frees people up to pursue whatever you're really passionate about. So if you love music, but you were never good enough to earn a living at it, now you can go and pursue your music because you don't have to make a living at it. Or if it's art, or if it's doing medical research and you say, well, the AI is so good at it, but guess what? You love doing it, so do it. Who knows? You might be in a particular instance better than even the best AI. So that's the sort of the promise that a lot of the people who are pushing the AI fastest, that's their premise of the future. Of course, there's the other option is, and that's that the handful of people who own all the AI and own all the robots might decide, why should we share with all those people who are useless? We're not dependent on those people. Kings and emperors in the past, they were always dependent on their population to provide them with an army, to provide them with labor and taxes and all that. But now, the top couple of percent might say, I'm not dependent on the masses of the population for anything anymore. In fact, if they didn't exist, we probably wouldn't have all the climate problems we have and the global warming. Maybe that's the solution. Get rid of 90% of the humans and we solve most of the world's problems. So that's the opposite side of the coin from humans being free to pursue their passion. It all comes down to can we reach agreement that we're all going to share in the benefits of this world, whether they're the natural resources or whether they're the means of production, or are we going to allow a very small sliver of the population to own and control that? Okay, talked enough for a while. I'm going to stay quiet. So please, somebody else start talking and let's not leave a void.
Hey, maybe I should use them.
No, you just muted yourself again, Kurt. No, you're muted still.
Okay, mate. I have so many thoughts on this. Of course, AI is either our best friend or we're worst enemy. And we haven't solved the issue, like you were talking about, of how to be in a new society. How do we get people to have a new outlook? How do we approach being the best, uh, let's say, conservators of the planet, conservators of all of things? Um, there's a program on today out of Humanity's Team. They've gotten together a whole bunch of supposed experts. I don't know all, I never read anybody's bios on them because the Humanities Team was started by a man named Neil Donald Walsh, who was famous for a series of books called The Conversations with God, and a guy named Steve Farrell. And Steve Farrell was a big entrepreneur, had plenty of money and all that. So they formed this team. And it was all about consciousness raising, getting people to do the good things that we're all been talking about. And they've been doing that for years. They've gotten probably the best compendium of thinkers and um, presenters on the planet, from Greg Braden to um, who's the anyway, many people. And it starts at like about 8 o'clock today. And if you want, I can put in the chat a link to it. But the point is that we've got to look at it that way rather than all the fear aspect of so many thousands of people going out of work. How many people have put together their way of doing it? And the way of doing it has to be multimedia, has to be all the social media, and getting to change the attitudes of people. It's like changing a Trumper to a Bernie kind of a person. And how do you do that? Because it has a similar kind of an outlook. The well-conditioned animal, the wants to just do what the master says, and the thinking animal that wants to create new and better things for the benefit of others. I'll rest my case. And maybe some of the people who have heard you finally stop speaking uh, have an opportunity to be able to talk. I have the same problem of talking a bit.
Yes, please. Jerica, I'm sure you can add something to this discussion.
Hey, Bill.
Hi.
Hey, and hi, everyone. Good morning. One thing that I've been wondering about that's a little bit off topic is back end hacking. You know, um, is there anything that's in place as we utilize these components, as AI companions, this, that, and the other? That's, for more personal use. But, once we step into, I don't know, trying to save the world here and, data and information's being pulled off, shared, certain things are being created. Um, how would we then kind of protect the good work that we do, making sure that it doesn't turn into bad work, making sure that we're not hacked when we're in these modes and when we are using the companions to build things.
Cybersecurity. Okay, a hot topic, a topic that's going to be very difficult to win that race. The few people that can or companies that can afford to spend hundreds of millions are coming up with solutions, but it's it's going to be very difficult for average people to be able to have privacy. This is probably a significant issue. We see a big difference in the attitude of Europeans, let's say, versus Americans. But um, I every type of security thing that I'm aware of, for example, these things where you have to go and they show a grid and you got to click on each of the squares that show a little bit of a traffic light or something like that. AI is solving those in nothing flat. It's just these are no security protection against AI with the voice capabilities and with the other capabilities to intercept. Even if you say, okay, I want a two-stage check, send me a code, and I have to put the code back in. It's able to detect and intercept those types of things as well. So it's a real challenge, and I don't know. Um, I don't know where that's going to take us, but AI is getting so much more, and intelligent is not the right word, but capable so quickly that it's I don't know here if I would spend a lot of time and effort in trying to protect against those privacy issues because I don't think it's with the means
What
available
about
to me.
more so like outward facing issues as we're able to, create the agents? Um, who's to say that someone like, I don't know, Mia Motley can't be recreated and give some kind of quote out there?
Mhm.
Is there anything in place that even kind of watermarks the media that we put out videos that say this is a AI produced
Yeah.
video, or this is an AI produced voice
Mhm.
message, as we go into the good work and as we
Yeah.
go into promoting this good work, what's in place kind of for us to see that this is the real person, this is the real voice,
Yeah.
rather than the AI
Mhm.
doing its mimic and its
Yeah.
copying.
My understanding is that both ChatGPT and Google are watermarking everything, even just text that goes out. Keep in mind, they're able to tag even the dot above an I and embed some code into that can act as a signature. So they're doing that, but it seems like for everything we come up with to be able to identify what is AI created, there are a half a dozen people working on coming up with ways to remove all watermarks and all such protections. So, does it help a little? Probably. Uh, I used to work at a major bank, and actually, I advised the collective, all the major banks of Switzerland at the C-suite level. And I remember one discussion we were in about the potential for fraud, and I said, "Hey, I can tell you how you can protect." At the moment, at that time, one of the issues where there was a number of bank robberies taking place in Switzerland. And that was a concern. I said, "Oh, I got the answer. You know what? Let's just bury every one of your bank branches in about 2 meter thick layers of concrete with no doors and no windows, no points of access and entry. And you know what? You solve there's not going to be any more crimes against banks. Of course, you won't have any business either, but if you're saying the only thing you're worried about is bank robberies, that's the solution to your bank robbery problem. And I think that shows that you have to weigh it. For one of the largest banks in the world that I worked with for in the U.S., um, uh, there was an incident one night. We literally cleared billions and billions of dollars every night through the clearing banks in the U.S. And there was an inconsistency. The money has to balance before you submit it to the government clearing centers, and they weren't there. But the new manager that was heading up that division, he said, "You send it anyway," because the amount of loss that would be incurred by one day of these billions and billions of dollars on float far exceeded whatever damage they could envision from having some percentage of the transactions being false. So this is a tough issue. And as I say, I don't necessarily have an answer for it, but there's a lot better brains than me that are looking into, and that's their whole job, is to how to come up with security measures.
That's
And
why
yeah.
there's a simple solution for what we just talked about. Don't worry, be happy. Really, I'm serious. It doesn't do us any good to be able to be concerned about any of this, that, and the other thing. We've got to start to look into our own senses, our own sensitivities, because without us using that sixth sense, which some people have more of than others, but some people practice it more and so on, or believe it more, we've got to get doing this kind of a thing. There's that guy, Greg Braden, who has that book, Pure Human, about, and he was actually one of the keynoters on this particular program I mentioned. It started yesterday. Um, it's fascinating what we can know deep in ourselves why we should do something, that we're going to do this instead of that. Choosing to be an educator like I did, it was using my sixes. I didn't know what the hell I was really going to do. I didn't have the real strong sense about something, but I followed this thing called my heart. And look where it got me. I've been around the world as an educator from middle school to university and having a great time all the time, except on the hijacked airplane.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kirk. I definitely love that input. And just one more question for everyone, and for you, Bill, as we go along and we are learning these tools and being updated on these tools, and we want to flow into work, do you feel as though the group, our club, might be ready to collaborate and possibly utilize some of these tools so that we can start to put together, imaging, different kind of promotional things for the different projects that we have going on. Do we feel like maybe the group, as we're updated, we can start collaborating to make some of these things start to happen with the really good work that we do?
Well, we've actually got a couple of the projects that we've been contemplating that we're actually trying to get off the ground right now, that to do exactly that. And one of them is the professional diplomats toolkit, AI-based toolkit, and that is a project that we're hoping to do with the Italian Diplomatic Academy and perhaps with Rotary worldwide, where we are inviting young people around the world to explore how they could use AI to help the decision makers of the world better solve world problems. In other words, when we think of how UN committees work, it's one thing to have a solution, but it's another thing to get the consensus of the world to act together to do something about the problems. And so when we observed in the model UN world, which is simulating the way the actual UN does that, It starts off with the various permanent representatives or ambassadors from the countries presenting what is their country's position on some issue or problem, and then trying to gain consensus by explaining why and how it could work, and convincing the others to try to get a consensus for how we can move forward on a particular problem. And so there's many opportunities for AI in that. One is in analyzing the issue that's before us and looking at it from all different sides on it. Another is understanding what's the position of all the stakeholders in the country you represent. Another is understanding what's the position of all the other countries and the stakeholders in those countries relative to the same issue to see who already agrees, who doesn't agree. And then there's the development of the strategy of how to approach those countries, perhaps that don't share the same position to try to find the common ground. So there's all these different possibilities there. So that's one project that we're hoping to get going here, literally within the next few months. We have a session in April at the UN in New York, and we're hoping that by that time we'll be able to have a advisory panel of professional diplomats, advisory panel of artificial intelligence experts, and that we'll be able to engage thousands of young people around the world in a competition to see who can come up with the best workflow concept that supports professional diplomats in doing their job of gaining consensus for true solutions to major world problems. So that's one of the areas. Another area here that we've been looking at is the idea of advanced education for everyone. And that is we used to call it Rotary University, but the idea is to curate, get working with the professional organization, the marketing associations, the education associations, the medical associations, all the different associations, to identify the knowledge that is felt to be needed to be effective in these various professions, and then curating all of the tools that are available out there to acquire that level of mastery that would make you an effective professional in that field. And then going and encouraging organizations to handling the credentialing, so that we separate the credentialing or certification from the knowledge acquisition aspect, and then make the knowledge acquisition aspect basically free by identifying all these different places that you can do that, gain your knowledge. So those are a couple of examples that we were looking at. A couple of others is that we talked about, if we look in developed countries, one of the biggest problems with education is that children from working in welfare class families, by the time they're of the age to begin school, they're already so disadvantaged that they are up to 2 years behind in mental maturity and verbal vocabulary skills. And then we try to teach reading on the assumption that, oh, if you can pronounce a group of letters, you'll recognize the word, and that's how you learn to read. But these children who don't have the verbal vocabulary skills, that doesn't work. And so we've been looking into the idea that AI in very inexpensive settings can become what the parents are unable to provide. If you have parents that didn't get an education themselves, perhaps they have no time because they're a single parent household having to earn for the family, or it's a low cost daycare that is just warehousing the kids, to be able to have AI be a surrogate parent in the sense that it reads to the children. Now, It's not like watching Sesame Street, which is a one way, and maybe the child is paying attention, maybe they're not. This is a two-way because the AI can actually observe the children that it's reading to, or it can engage the children in story building and story making. And in this way, have those children have at least an equal start when they hit the school system as children from middle and upper class families. So this is another example of where we see uh, the possibilities that something that our club can actually promote. We're we're waiting a little bit here. There's a little technology piece that the forecasts are saying could come very soon, and that is the what HeyGen is calling the live avatar. They're starting to come out. Synthesia and HeyGen are the two main players in that space that have interactive avatars. Because if we can provide that to all these daycare centers and or to home, there's 5 or 6 children in a home that the AI can read to the children, but watch and see which child is getting it, which child's paying attention, and engage those children in discussion, then that could have a huge, huge impact. So again, those are just a couple of examples. Kurt, I don't know if your hand is up from before, or you want to add something.
I'm sorry, I did not lower my hand, but the whole issue has to be a focus on really what people are learning too and why. That's why I put into the chat the idea about the Peacemaker Challenge. The kids get to learn and figure out what's going to bring more and more peace, the kind of peace that they need in their life, and to create it in a way that is going to be able to be helpful for more and more people. And that gives them a way to create a society that everybody wants to live in. Whereas when we get in to learning this, that, or the other thing, like the 3 R's and the science and all that, what do we create? Oh, I got this bomb. I got this way to cheat. I got that way to do that. Let's create a really great society. Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how many of you have heard of Mo Gaudet. He used to head up Google X. Google X is the part of Google that would chasing after moonshots. They were the ones that came up with the electric car or the self-driving car concept. But their whole motto is set goals that are so high that there is no known way to achieve those goals. Because that forces you to think outside the box. If there's nothing that's known that could solve the problem, you got to look elsewhere. And so he headed that up, and he gives a lot of talks. And the general thrust is, AI is not a problem. The problem is humans. We talk about empathy. A lot of times people say, look, a machine can't have empathy. Well, it can't have original empathy, but it can simulate empathy far better than most humans can because not all humans are empathetic. You just have to look at places in different parts of the world where conflicts are going on and seeing how people treat one another to realize that there's an awful lot of people in this world that have no empathy or they have empathy only for narrow classifications of other people. I see here, let me see. Where is okay? Just talking about, I mentioned about last week on the Model UN experience, and I see we got Mohammed Ahmed here on the call. Do you want to just say a couple of words about your experience with this future we want Model UN, this idea of how do you come up with solutions and how you can work to gain consensus of other people to be able to actually have a joint resolution of, hey, what should we do about these issues? Selma Helden? I don't know if you're somewhere where you can unmute yourself. Okay, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, so we were talking here. Let me see if I can just bring up some examples. I'm um, I'm gonna whoop, let me share my screen. Okay. Hmm, Where did there we go. Okay. So I'm in Notebook LM. Can everybody see my Notebook LM screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna select here. One of the things about Notebook LM, you'll see these featured notebooks. These are people uh, where it's been decided that they are useful uh, notebooks or useful knowledge collections, and they make it available to others. I have this one here. It's called Collection of YouTube Video URLs. And what you can see here is I just have um, a lot of YouTube videos that as I go through and I find a YouTube video that is interesting, talking about the future and where things seem to be going, that I add that. Uh, woo, woo.
So if we had a whole bunch of videos on the that thing that's flying off in space, what is it, E13Q, whatever it is, that's taken up everybody's ideas. Um, we could put in videos about that, and it would compile all the similarities and differences and fears and doubts and all that.
Please repeat that, Kurt.
Well, there's this AI Atlas or something like that, A3 Atlas, whatever, that's out in space that's getting all the top astronomers concerned or thinking that this is the first time that we have an extraterrestrial, so to speak, wishing to be able to communicate with us. And they seem to have found the code that it has to communicate. And they're working that out right now. And it's taken up a lot of space on the YouTube, and especially one of my best friends' time, almost full time, to be able to look at. And you put in, let's say, similar kind of a thing to your uh, Notebook LM, and it will then compile and give a discernment very briefly. Or what is it? How is it that you use that?
Uh, uh, I have not heard about that, be honest with you.
Uh,
So I really can't say anything about it. Does anybody else have some information maybe on that?
we may have a bunch of AIs listening in.
Yeah. Um, okay. I don't know why. Oh, okay. Here we go. Okay. Perplexity, ChatGPT. Okay, I've gone to ChatGPT uh, mode here. Can you see my ChatGPT screen?
Yeah, we can say.
Okay. Just so you're aware, the agent mode, I'm not seeing agent mode over here anymore. So let me just ask, how do I get to agent mode? Uh-huh, uh-huh. So this one is not, huh. Okay, somehow it lost access here because I'm on the plus plan, but it's not showing that. So let me stop sharing that. By the way, I just moved from New Jersey to North Carolina 2 days ago. So you might see boxes and stuff behind me here. So this is part of the reason I haven't had a chance to check out some of this stuff beforehand. Apologize for that.
Hey Bill, how was your conference in Washington, D.C.? I don't know if you have already have gone through that.
Yeah, yeah, no, I mentioned it was very interesting, especially because we had large groups from countries that are perhaps typically not um, as prevalent there. But it was very good, and we have one gentleman here, but apparently he's not able to communicate on the call, who was a delegate to the session here in Washington. So, and we also have here on the call. Well, let me go into this first. In Gemini, this canvas in Gemini now, what you can do with that is just amazing. And then I mentioned that one of the things that you can do is if you go to Notebook LM and you load it up with information about something, and now you want to create a an explainer, PowerPoint or whatever about that, a really good quality one, that you can come into this canvas mode in Gemini, and it's pretty amazing what you can do. Um, so. I've I've been able to see the stuff there, but I haven't been able to do something with it. I don't want to waste your time with me playing around with trying to get these things working that way. Um, oh, I see. I don't know if this is going to switch. Do you see here now that it's saying a collection of YouTube video URLs? Or do you still see my chat GPT?
It just says, hello, Bill.
Okay, so that's that one there. So now let me switch over. Okay, so now you should see collection of YouTube video URLs. And I'm
Yeah.
going to come over here and you see you have the ability to create audio overviews. There's always a little pen or a little thing that says edit here. So you can do your audio overviews. And you can do a deep dive, brief, critique, debate. You pick your language. I think it's up to 90 different languages. And then you give it your details of what you wanted to discuss. You can go for a short, default, or long video. And that's just on the video side. And I don't know why I'm not getting these to. Uh, okay, that was that. Okay.
Anoop has his hand up.
Retire, your specialized knowledge, your decades of experience, it mostly dies with you. Or, at best, it gets transferred slowly, imperfectly, through teaching or writing. That's a massive bottleneck for economic progress.
It's intelligence locked in specific, temporary, high maintenance, fragile biological systems.
Precisely. Now contrast that with digital intelligence. It's essentially immortal and infinitely scalable. Or even just retire your specialized knowledge, your decades of experience.
Okay. I just wanted to take you that. I don't know why the display is going here. Something to do with my Chrome. What I think what I wanted to show you here was you have the ability to create the flashcards, quizzes. You can create all kinds of reports now. So you can have a study guide, blog post, a briefing doc, but then it will load these suggestions here for different kinds. A strategic analysis report, a policy briefing paper, explanatory guide. So you can go into these different things. But and the one that I think is going to become the really hot one is down here in the chat mode, where you can say, okay, make me an outline for a presentation, make me an outline for this, and then you copy that information over to Gemini and you use the new features there. I'm going to have to send out a link to some YouTubes that you can see so you're not looking at my messed up screen here, because this just is frustrating, I'm sure. Anup, please.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Bill. It was just illuminating. I think I learned quite a bit about ChatGPT. I didn't know some of those features they have. Uh, Now we know that there's AI and there's AGI, which is general intelligence, where it will become a human level sort of. Then there's ASI. They were talking about the super intelligence in the
Right.
recent news article, where it will be a lot more better than a human. So the technology pace is going on, and it's going to happen for sure. We know that. I don't think we're going to stop it. Why isn't there a talk about, like what you mentioned, the UBI and the policies? The government has to come up with policies with either UBI or a negative income tax rate, or how do we compensate the countries that we could be raiding for their resources, because we will have defense capabilities and ASI capabilities, and it'll be easy to take over the countries.
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
we kind of
No, this is really the what I believe needs to be the topic of the day. This is what we need to be concerned about. We have to realize AI has already passed the humans uh, in individual fields.
Mhm.
If we take a look at whether it's um, exams for medical, for law, for any of the sciences, AI now exceeds the capability of about 80, 75 to 90% of people it's already exceeding. And this is one of the things that where we humans make a very bad mistake is we look to AI, and if AI is not 100% perfect, then it's not as good as us, but humans are far from being 100% perfect. So we have to go and take a look. If I go out, the average person that I would want to hire to do a job is not as good as the AI. The AI, I know where they're at. They're at the same consistent level because they're doing the same thing every time. But the human that I go to hire, if it's an average human, it is less capable as the AI. So this is why we're seeing some of the layoffs. Some of the layoffs are because that particular function that they were doing, AI can do much better. But for a lot of humans, it's going to be simply because they're not in the top 10% of humans in doing that task, and AI is better than 90% of the humans. Another thing we have to really keep in mind is AI does not have to replace your job, or it does not have to be the replacement for your job for most jobs. Uh, think of the self-driving car. Uh, we're not turning the self-driving over to AI. We're not saying, hey, AI, evaluate the situation. You make a decision. Where do we go from here? For the most part, AI is for self-driving cars. What is doing? It's observing all the inputs from around the car to understand what's taking place around it. And then it's watching what the humans did. This is what it did originally. It watched what the humans did, and it saw which actions from the humans led to bad results and which actions from the humans led to good results. And then it coded the response to say, if you detect this situation, then take this action. So we really got a lot of hard-coded code behind self-driving cars. And as we capture more and more information about these cause and effect situations, we have a higher and higher percent of the situations that are covered by the hard coding. And initially, the very, very first toys were for the most part, it was, oh, if you bump into something, stop and back up and turn to the right or left, and there may have been a dozen or 2 dozen decision situations that were programmed. And then over time, it became more and more and more and more. Back, I think, around 2017. Up until that time, Tesla sort of had a monopoly on understanding what was going on with self-driving cars. And that's at the time that China started to become really actively engaged in developing self-driving cars. In a period of about 3 years, they closed that gap by almost 90% to Tesla. And everybody was like, whoa, how could this be possible? Well, the reason is because China has a lot more complex
Developers.
driving situations where it's not as disciplined with all the lines on the roads, well, at least back at that time, not all the lines on the roads. Not everybody followed exactly all the rules. And so there was a lot less discipline. So they were able to capture many, many more situations and therefore code for those. And so that's what enabled China to catch up so fast, was because they were generating more situational input. And that's happening now all over the world with not just self-driving cars, but we're putting up cameras and sensors and things like this everywhere that is capturing the information about what's going on in the world. And the more we capture the information, the more we're able to say, okay, this is what should be happening in that situation. Now, many times the first few tries at doing that uh, were not necessarily the greatest solutions, and therefore we got a bad result. But every time we got a bad result and they went and improved that result, we're getting the AI, we're calling it AI, getting better and better. But the AI is getting better and better as the designer and developer, not necessarily always as the decision maker at the moment of decision. And so when we think about it here, even a lot of executives, they make decisions, but because you're higher up in the hierarchy, the thought is that the exceptions that come to you are rarer. So we automate all the ones that happen down at the bottom, that we call them routine because they happen several times a day. And the ones that are happening up at the executive levels might only be happening once every couple of years. But as we have more time and more ability to capture more of these scenarios, This is why pretty much every job up and down the line is subject to being automated. When we think
Yeah.
about it, you go to a university and you study to get an MBA. Most of the time in the MBA, it's going and discussing what would be the best practices in this situation, that situation. If we can describe what would be the ideal thing to do in a particular situation, we can automate it.
Yeah.
So
But I
that,
think for driving, I would say between what we call it here is the program driving versus intuitive driving in places like India and China.
yeah, right. Yes.
But
Uh,
about the policies, is it the responsibility of the creator of these technologies, or is it the government that need to step in and come up with these policies? Because otherwise it will be chaos. I mean, countries with defense capabilities can go and conquer Venezuela whenever they want it, or any country they want it. Uh, and especially combine that with ASI, it will come up with right strategies and approaches to quickly take over.
well, the issue is going to be what happens first. Within the next 1 to 3 years, we are probably going to see these layoffs that we talked about that are hitting in the developed countries
Yeah.
because this year, 2025, I understand, has been the worst year for college graduates in the United States.
Hmm.
The unemployment rate under college graduates for the first time is higher than the unemployment rate for people who never went just at high school. So uh, the problem is that a lot of creative jobs, a lot of your entry level jobs in almost every field are the jobs that are being automated the first. And the number of companies and people that we've got that are working on workflows, AI workflows, the tools that are becoming available to automate the workflows are just getting incredible. And like everything else in AI, one of the challenges in AI is it's one thing to say, here's a situation, go do one task. It's another situation to say, here's a goal. Figure out the sum of all the tasks that you need to do, the sequence you need to do them, how you're going to do each one, and what you're going to do if one of them fails. That's a much more complicated situation. So that's typically measured by how long a duration can a workflow survive, if you would, an AI workflow. And for the most part, it was sub 1 hour. But now there's some examples coming up to around 14, 15 hours that it is able to go on its own without requiring human input and work on some sequence of things of a more complicated thing over a greater length of time. Because these are coming, I think it's very few people who still believe no, AI can't do what humans can do. It's only a matter of time as we get these fringe cases, as we get these rare cases, and we start automating more and more and more of those. And if we think about how AlphaGo was created, they just said, AI, go play a bunch of these games and figure out how it works and figure out the sequence that is going to make you a winner and it can just try over and over. When we think about how right now drug discovery, medication discovery is taking place, it's using the same approach to that. And NVIDIA is turning it into a business to create data because for a lot of the AI, we're saying, oh, we're running out of data. There's no more, we've captured all the data that we know. But now they're using AI to create new hypothetical situations and to be able to discover all kinds of things. Google's got a project like that as well, a big project. So it's coming. I think here the question is how quickly. And I think if we see these losses that we heard about from Ingrid and we see from Amazon and UPS, that in this next year, if we look at how fast the agent technology is growing, and keeping in mind that we've got hundreds of thousands of developers out there, that are looking and trying to automate specific workflows. Now, many of those, the great majority of those, are not very sophisticated, not very good, have a lot of flaws. But as each one comes up and figures out a better solution, then that's the solution that's going to grow and be built on, and it will spread across the whole network. One of the big changes is if we go and say, here's a million humans that lost their job, so we're going to reskill them, we're going to upskill them. Well, we got to upskill a million times. If there's an AI flaw and we figure out here an upskill for that flaw, we do it once and all the AIs know. So this is why here we have to recognize that the idea of humans being dependent on their labor for income is not a model that's going to work for a long time. And so you're absolutely right. We need to go and make sure that organizations like the UN and others are starting to plan for that peaceful transition because let's just say the United States, the North America, and Europe, their populations are starting to get unruly within 1 or 2 years, and they say we need a universal basic income. So they make one for the U.S. makes one for itself. Okay, well, who's going to help DR Congo? DR
Yeah.
Congo, countries that have a high per capita GDP, they can develop a universal basic income for their populations. But countries that don't have a high per capita GDP are going to have a problem. So we need a world solution, not a nation by nation solution.
I like
And
what you mentioned, the resources, who has the resources? I think everybody, the resources are commons.
yes,
That commons has to become the worldwide or even
absolutely. That
outside,
yes.
even outside space, outside
Yeah. And you mentioned the right word, commons. This is something, if we look back, thousands of years, when humans went from being migratory animals just wandering around and started settling down. At that time, the property wasn't owned by anybody. It was owned in commons by the tribe or whatever group. And then even as they started getting some ownership, somebody put a fence or something up there and said, that is my land now. There was still a section of the community that was shared in commons. And we see that still in Boston. The biggest park in the city is the Boston Commons. And in many early colonial towns and cities, that was the case. We actually have I'm a member of the Commons Cluster of the
Mhm.
United Nations NGO Major Group. And that is our position here that why somebody moved and bought a piece of land. And 100 years later, or so many years later, somebody found that down below there was oil. Why should that oil belong to that person? That person didn't do anything to put that oil there and make that oil. There has to be things that recognize, hey, that belongs to all of us in commons, and that's where we're going to have to get, not just for the resources, but for the means of production. We cannot have that 2% of the population or 1% of the population owns all the AI and owns all the robots. Because the risk is if you go to ChatGPT and if you go to any of the AIs and you ask them, well, what's the likely outcome of the evolution of AI? And in one of the scenarios that's frequently mentioned is that at some point the wealthy 1 or 2% owner class is going to become so afraid of the bottom 90% useless class, using Yuval Harari's term for that. These people have no use to that 1 or 2% anymore. And the 1 or 2% is afraid of them. They may take a preemptive strike and say, let's just eliminate the bottom 90%. And not only do we remove the risk that they may come after us at some time, but we also improve the ecological situation of the planet.
Yeah.
And we have free access to the resources then. So this is why we have to be aware of the possibilities, and we have to go and say things that are really bad outcomes, we have to take measures to try to prevent. We can't just assume that if we do nothing, the right thing is going to come out. That I think is the most important message that I would like to convey to as many people as possible. The UN needs to create a committee dedicated to planning, coming up with a plan for a peaceful transition for the world to a post-labor economy.
I don't know if it's really a UN or it will be a combination of technologists, politicians, sociologists, philosophers. They need to come together, not the
Well,
representatives of political representative of countries.
yes, but the problem here is, yes, we could get here the multinationals who are starting to say, well, we're above any country anyway,
Hmm.
because we're active in so many different countries. But the UN committees, for the most part, they very often work in concert with the professional bodies, so that that it's a combination. You need the regulatory along with with the technological expertise, because otherwise we could run up with a whole bunch of people saying, "Hey, uh, we've got some kind of cyber coin here, and we're you got conflicting uh, economic models from non-regulatory bodies." And that could really create a chaotic situation.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So, but that's a very interesting point, and thank you for bringing that point up. Um, that we've got to figure out how to get the UN, and in our Commons Cluster group, one of the things we have our mailing list includes every ambassador to the UN, every representative to UNESCO and UNICEF, as well as all the ministers of all the countries around the world. And so the idea is creating awareness. But we had a major country in the world, their representative this last March stand up and said they are against the SDGs, and it's not in the interest of their country, and they're against the idea of international cooperation.
Yeah.
They think here whoever has the strength to dictate should dictate.
I mean, as Rotarians, we are internationally connected and we got peace fellows. I mean, could that something be, we can start something?
Well, Kurt can probably be the one to best answer that. Kurt, how we doing on Rotary and Peace?
Oh boy, Rotary and Peace is a fascinating experience because I put into the chat about 6 different Rotary Peace Clubs that are out there. Kat Haber has one of the most dynamic ones that I've seen because she really involves all the people as much as possible in getting to practice peace in everything. Everything is peace. She is head of TEDx education, not TEDx education, TED Talks education. She runs the TEDx Vail, and of course, this We Rotary Club of International Peace. And we meet every other week, and the next one is this Monday. Ray Matsumiya and Kat designed at the Rotary International Convention in Calgary this year the whole Peace Park, and had all the different speakers, all the different booths, all the different ways to present peace on earth in that particular section. And it was really a dynamic force and very experiential. And that's one of the things that too many things are not. It's like in regard to learning languages. We aren't so experiential in our school system in the old ways of learning, but of course we get to be able to do much more in different ways with other kinds of learning. I see that Pushpi And you're from Sri Lanka, Pushpa. Can you get on the line because we'd love to be able to hear your voice.
Yeah,
And
I'm based in Sri Lanka,
excellent. Are you in Colombo or where?
Colombo, yes.
Uh-huh. I used to work a lot of consulting with some people there, and it's been years since I've done that. I'm gonna have to look back in my address book and recharge, so to speak, or maybe you could help me recharge in getting much more peace happening there. And I'd love to interface with you much more. So, boom,
Sure,
boom,
let's.
shambolo.
One thing here with regards to the piece, and Kurt and I have had a number of discussions on this. Um, I find here when I go and I try to do things with mass movement. I've mobilized more than 100,000 people on more than 3 occasions, and I do have some experience in that. And there are some of the things that we do that have lasting effects, and some that don't. Unfortunately. One of the things that I'm the former vice chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the UN. And uh, one of the things I looked at was, okay, we have had the Millennium Development Goals, now the Sustainable Development Goals, and we look at how we're doing. And the UN, the last couple of years during the high-level political forums in the summer, had to admit that we are totally far off track to achieve any of the significant Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. In fact, there are more goals that have had zero or have actually fallen backwards. We've actually lost ground since 2015. There's more targets, goal targets. There's 169 targets. There's more targets that have fallen behind or are zero progress than have any chance of being achieved by 2030. So I went and looked at the case here of how many projects are undertaken around the world every year, or in the case of Rotary, I looked at a decade. And over the last several decades, Rotary has done more than 1 million projects. Rotary and Rotary clubs have done more than 1 million projects per decade. If we look across the NGO world in general and the governments and NGOs, there's more than 1 million projects undertaken around the world every year related to the major problems that are behind the SDGs. And yet, when we go and look at the World Bank statistics or other major statistics, we don't see any progress. In fact, when I attend Rotary conventions, one of the things I ask people is, for all the efforts of a Rotary over the past years and decades, what problems are closer to ultimate resolution as a result of Rotary efforts than over the last couple of decades? And people look and they mention polio. Okay, polio's great. It represents some percent of 1% of the world's problems. Uh, what about the rest? We're supposed to be the biggest association of business and civic leaders in the world. How can it be that the biggest association of business and civic leaders in the world cannot even improve on 1% of the major world problems? Who else is there better positioned to have impact on world problems than the largest association of business and civic leaders in the world? So we looked into why. And the first thing we found was it's the goals. Where are the projects that have as their goals to significantly reduce the major problems facing the world? And not just Rotary, but in general, there are almost no projects that have as their goal to dramatically reduce the problem situation itself in the world. Almost no projects. The great majority of the projects are reactive. How do we help the victims or deal with the consequences of the problems? How do we help the victims? But there are almost no efforts underway to eliminate the problem in the first place. The second major problem we found was that almost all projects are local and regional. And so because there's a lot of local projects, we're hearing local project there, local project over there. There's one, there's one. But when we go and add it up, it's usually somewhere around 2 to 4%, let's say, of communities around the world are dealing with any particular problem. And for every new community that's joining that, some other community is stopping their efforts. So as a result, we can get all these anecdotal examples of efforts that are underway, but we can't see any aggregate results because they're just not happening.
But Bill, that's why we got to get these kids doing something, and they recharge and they get everybody in the frickin' world to be able to have a vision of bringing peace on earth in any which way it can. It'll provide all the answers to all those other questions. Why? Because it gets them creating the world, really speaking, that they want to be able to live in. We have
Yes.
not created that. We've done it all because of what our parents have done and said, and we got to do this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah, but the situation is we still aim way too small to have a major impact. We have a project plan that is aimed at addressing that. We feel we have to mobilize hundreds of millions of young people to act in concert to address the major problems facing the world. Right now, our whole school, our education systems around the world is keep quiet and don't speak until you're spoken to and do what you're told. And we have to bring about change to that. And to do that, young people have to have confidence that they can go beyond what people's expectations are. We live in a society that too often says, don't bite off more than you can chew. And make sure you can succeed before you start doing something. Well, the name of our club, Dare to be Great. Dare. Dare to go beyond the expectations.
Okay,
Uh,
I got a challenge for you, Bill, and I
yeah.
challenge you and other people on this call or anywhere else. I've done this. I don't have access right now. My computer just died on me. It's an old computer and it won't open up right now or anything. Um, but so I'm just doing this on the phone. Otherwise, I would put in the challenge and even the address where you can get the communicate with a guy named Joe Rogan, which is a guy who has the biggest podcast in the world, and or any of the other big super podcasters that have millions and millions and millions of people watching them daily, or however often they are, and get out there and get this word out there because we have something to give that needs to be heard in a way that it needs to be on in every area because too often we are singing to the choir. We're talking to
Yes.
ourselves.
Yes.
We've got to do this outreach. If we don't do that, we're history.
Okay. So we have actually a couple of very concrete steps in that regard. I'm just looking here, this one to show you. And okay, one of the ones that we were doing that got interrupted by COVID that we want to resurrect. How could we get 500 million, a half a billion young people to declare themselves to be SDG warriors? Okay, it starts with a goal. So you set the goal, not just to improve the numbers, but let's set a real goal. 500 million, pardon me, 500 million. How could we do that? And the idea that we came up with is we saw that the studies by the Gates Foundation, UNICEF, and UNESCO into reading showed that as of 2022, 2 out of every 3 10-year-olds in this world can't read. So the UN needs a win right now because right now the general feeling is the UN is not able to solve any problems. The UN needs a win to have people restore their faith that by working together we can make a difference. So the challenge that we came up with, if we went out after climate, we just have to take a look at the young girl, Greta Thunberg from Sweden, and to see what's going on there. That movement is drying up. And it got to a certain level and just stopped. And I talked to my grandchildren who are in that age in high school, and they said, hey, the majority of the kids, they never cared about the Fridays for Future at all. So the issue is climate change. There's too many people. It's too controversial. Conflicts. There's always people on either side. So that's too controversial. It's too abstract for real results. So where could we get real results? And we decided that that literacy would be an example where we could get real results that would be greater than any results thus far since the history of the United Nations. And by doing it, actually involve people in a movement that would be the largest organized endeavor by humans in humankind. There has never been anything in humankind that engaged hundreds of millions of people at the same time to accomplish a particular goal. So the theory behind it was, can we get the Secretary General to call for every school in the world to demonstrate their resolve to overcome the education losses due to COVID by participating in a global readathon, by having all their students read just 40 minutes a day for 1 month, for 30 days. 40 minutes a day for 30 days is 20 hours. And that all Rotary and Lions clubs around the world would encourage their local businesses and local individuals in their community to incentivize their students to read as much as possible by pledging a small donation for every hour their own kids, their own local kids, would read. And with the goal of getting 500 million, that's roughly half of those in school, half the kids in school, half the schools around the world to participate. And the goal is that the Secretary General would issue the initial appeal, but that the 150 countries plus that participate in literacy through UNESCO, their ministries of education would echo that, because in many countries, the schools can't do anything if it's not approved by the Ministry of Education. So we only talked to a couple, but the response from ministers of education was very, very positive. To simply calling for kids to read more during a particular month, the Read for a Better World month. Now, the idea is those donations. We did a pilot in the U.S. We saw we were able to get about $5 per participant. Pardon me, $5 per hour read. In the pilot, where the kids went out and encouraged their parents and their relatives and neighbors to make a small donation for them for every hour they read. But by going and doing it through the mass media and so forth, we feel we can do even better than that. But let's assume we were able to get only 20 to 30 cents, because most countries aren't as wealthy as the United States is. If we think of Malawi or Nepal, let's say we only were able to get 20 or 30 cents per hour read. At 10 billion hours read, which is 500 million students times 20 hours, that would still be $2 to $3 billion. And if those funds were earmarked to reduce the number of children in the world that are not in school due to poverty, that would reduce that number by between 10 and 20 million in 1 year. And if we repeat this annually by early 2030s, there probably would be no child anywhere in the world not in school due to poverty. Now, that sounds really great. And a lot of people said, wow, okay, imagine what that would do to literacy. Because the idea, I can't claim any credit for that idea. This was an idea of 9 and 10-year-olds. We went to a school and we dared them to come up with a great idea. And then we left, and they called us back after a couple of weeks. The principal called us and said, the kids have an idea. And they said, hey, we saw that a lot of our classmates are weak readers. We want to do something that's going to help improve their reading. But at the same time, we heard about these children in the world who can't go to school because they don't have any food and they have to spend all day begging or foraging for food. And we want to enable some of them to be able to go to school and learn to read also. So the idea here is if we could mobilize 500 million young people to participate in the reading and create some competitive effects so that if your school has the highest average number of hours read per student, you get bonus, your school gets bonus donations in their name. Now, but here's the key. Some people said, oh, that's great for literacy. Some people said that's great for raising money to do something about poverty. But our real key was, remember what I said, it's about mobilizing people and get them to believe they can make a difference. So the idea was roughly a month after the end of this Read for a Better World initiative, that every Rotary and Lions Club around the world, it's about 100,000 clubs, would organize honor ceremonies in their community, and they would honor every single student who participated in the readathon would be honored as a global citizen hero, as an official global citizen hero, because the hours they read led to the raising of the funds that so dramatically changed the lives of millions of the world's poorest children. Now, can you think of any event in world history that had that big an impact across the entire world that involved so many people? Because it's not only the students that did the reading, but all the people that went out and encouraged people to make pledges to donate the funds to encourage the reading and to raise the funds to reduce the number of children not in school due to poverty. And do that in a way that makes those children who participated so proud of what they accomplished. That's the whole key, is to create an excuse to honor people for doing something good that would get them feeling so proud that they're saying, what can we do next? What can we do next? Wow, look at this. Look what we did. You see my t-shirt says, I'm a hero, okay, or a wristband or whatever. But the key thing is to make people proud and want to be a hero. And the next year, we don't have 500 million, we have 600 million or 700 million because people are seeing that impact. So that's the theory, the kind of ideas that we're looking at. Kurt, I know you're leaving, but before you leave, could you just comment on that?
I'm excited about what you just said, because you said these kids made this whole idea with all these millions of dollars and readathon and all that. That's the whole idea of this Peacemakers Challenge, is getting the kids to not only solve that one aspect of the issue of peace, but basically in all the aspects of the issues of peace, from economics to social aspects, because we will have a dramatic drop in any kind of incarcerations, in any kind of maltreatment, in any kind of environmental degradation, just by having them see and do what it is that inspires them to create more and more peace in their life. And this is not only kids in school, this is youth of all ages, just like us. Because I look at you and I get to turn 80 next year, just like you in a couple of years, or whatever that's going to be. And big deal. 80 is only a number. And we've got all the juice like as if we were kids, because sometimes we still act like it. And that's why you're in North Carolina. And I want to turn you on to Carolyn Bumgardner down there. And anyway, I'll catch you later. Thank you so much for all that you do. And everybody else, let's cross-pollinate. Cheers.
Okay. Thanks, Kurt. Okay. The one thing here we have to really keep in mind, the 9 and 10-year-olds came up with the idea that they did locally. They ran it. They got 70 volunteers in their school, and they raised enough money in 10 days to take 250 of the world's poorest children off the streets of Malawi, get them into school and feed them there for a whole year. And they had the local congresswoman, a CNN Hero of the Year award winner, the local mayor, a former UN ambassador, all come down and telling these kids, "Wow, you're heroes! Look what you've done!" And the impact was just amazing. But here's the thing: that wouldn't have spread the word. Actually, it did a little because we actually got some videos in from, I think, Nigeria, from Jordan, from Austria. In other words, from Africa, Middle East, Europe, and Latin America. Kids from other schools heard about that and made videos of their own, congratulating these kids in New Jersey for what they had accomplished. But the idea to take that into a world movement, um, unfortunately, the kids can't do that on their own. It takes organization. It takes real big organization. I say that because a group of young people in Rotary Interact picked up on the idea and said, "We're going to do this." And they went out, and I think it was in Austria, the Netherlands, Uganda. They talked to schools, and the schools said, "Wow, this is a great idea. Let's do it." And they were planning to do it all through social media. And they had a fairly large organization that was going to do this. They wrote some computer programs to support it. And the day that they were going to do it came and went, and nobody did anything. And they went back to the schools and said, "Why? You were so excited. Why didn't you do anything?" And they said, "Sorry, we're not allowed to do anything unless the Ministry of Education tells us." So you got to go top down and bottom up. We can go bottom up through the masses by getting speeches by the Secretary General, by getting the association, the Federation of Teachers Associations around the world that are always looking for ways to get kids excited in reading and things. We can get all kinds of parties getting the word out, but we also have to go through the official channels to make sure that the structures, the permissions are there to actually do the participation. So you have to go top down and bottom up on the mass media and official channels. So we can do that. Another initiative, yes.
Yeah, from a bottom end point of view, I think it's a great idea to have a big, hairy goal. At the bottom end, what our club did was to support a group that was helping paying the older sibling to read to the younger one.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, helped because the older siblings, the younger ones will always listen to the older one. So I think something like that at the lower level would be good if all the clubs do that.
Yeah.
And
Anup, where are you located?
I'm in Minnesota.
Oh, okay, okay. The reason I mention that, there's a group from Ahmedabad, India, Design for Change, and they encourage the students, pretty much middle school age, to come up with great ideas and then go implement them. And a number of communities in across India, there's about, I think, something like 40,000 schools now participate in this program, where they do a competition like this annually. And one of the ones that a lot of communities did was the kids organized and went out and organized all the adults that were illiterate and set up reading programs to teach. So the kids, middle school kids, are going out in the community and teaching the adults to be able to read. So yeah, but the problem is the program that you guys did. How many illiterate people became literate as a result of that program?
I think it was largely the minority communities that we focused on, and they would kind of participate in this program because they were getting some funds, some money out of it.
Yeah.
I think there's some motivation for them, but it's kind of making it general will be difficult. So there has to be a different solution for different groups of students.
Yeah. One of the things, when I left education, I was teaching at Purdue, university. And I decided that university was too late to make a major difference in the world.
Yeah.
So I took the following 3 years and I had an opportunity to speak with educators pretty much throughout the most of the U.S. or much of the U.S., Missouri, Texas, Georgia, the whole Northeast from Washington, D.C., Northeast. I think I went to every state. And to look at what was the difference between places that were successful and not successful. And in almost every school I visited, they would tell me about a program they were doing that was having a significant impact. So I said, fine, show me for the previous 10 years what the progress has been in achieving results. And unfortunately, in almost every school, more than 90% of all the schools that were telling me about the fantastic programs that they were doing, there had been no dramatic aggregate improvement over the past decade. So it's like tutoring programs that Rotary does. We're dealing with the symptoms. We're not dealing with the problems.
Mhm.
And I don't have it here, but Jerica might comment on. She has one of my wristbands. I have some wristbands that we did for young people from Africa that said they wanted to participate in this global readathon idea. And so we said, oh, let's get some wristbands that say, I'm a member of Vision Africa 2030, Dare to be Great, SDGs Now. And I went and I got a quote for 50 million of those because that's how we have to think. I tell people anything that this idea, every little bit helps. That is some kind of a lie we tell ourselves. It helps the people we help, but it doesn't change the situation, the overall situation. And the problem is we have to be thinking, how do we change the overall situation? As long as nobody's doing that, I think here of Ian Risley when he was president of Rotary. He set as his goal every Rotarian should plant a tree during his year of presidency. And I remember there were some Rotary clubs that held tree planting parties. And they were all patting themselves on the back. Look at what we did. We planted a tree. And so I'm thinking here, wow, if every Rotarian did that, 1.2 million trees at that time. And I said, oh, isn't this fantastic? Until I looked it up and said, okay, how big a difference does 1.2 million trees make? And I found out that we lose 600,000 trees an hour. So the largest association of business and civic leaders in the world, managed to offset 2 out of 8,000 hours. 1/4,000th of a year's loss in trees is what the biggest association of business and civic leaders in the world could accomplish. That's because we didn't set our goals high enough. And it's interesting here when we talk about going and saying, how can we mobilize 500 million people? And people look at me and say, are you crazy? But then we think here, Michelangelo had a quote, and he says, the problem for most people is not that they set their goals too high and fail, but they set their goals too low and succeed. And we recall Steve Jobs, who said that those who think they can change the world are the ones who do. Why? Because it's only the ones who think they can who try, and only those who try can succeed. So we had a 14-year-old associate member of our club who, looking at all that, said, should we fail, let it not be because we didn't set our goals high enough. And that's resulted in a little bit of a part of our manifesto in our club is to set our goals based on what's needed and not what we think we can do. So that because only then do we have a chance, because you can't hit what you don't aim for. So the first thing is we got to make sure we aim for the things that are going to make a difference. So I'm seeing here we have 11:13 here. I want to try to keep today's meeting a little bit short, and I see we've lost a lot of folks here who had to go on to other events there. Moheldin, are you able to unmute yourself now and speak to us, or? Okay, and doesn't look like it. Okay. So does anybody have any comments on this idea? We sort of rambled a little bit today into this whole idea of the goal setting and so forth, and doing things that could really make a difference. Um, any last thoughts on that? And we'll maybe end this meeting a little early today. Anybody want to say anything as a closing remark? Was this a useful session?
Very much. I think today was extremely useful because we brought into conversation the SDGs, and I think talking about the transition from MDGs to SDGs, kind of sets the tone for the availability for entities such as the UN to constantly transition to reorganize goals when goals are not met. And I think that as we address things head on from a root cause standpoint and how we seek to maybe influence that process, I think this is it's a really huge goal of ours. But I think if we keep aiming high for that, we can be very influential on the extreme pivot that we need to experience as far as where our world is going.
Yes, and I really, we see a lot of faces that are here each time, and Meldon, I know because you were in Washington last week, and I really feel the energy at the end of the session there. You and a lot of your colleagues that said, "Okay, took my business card here and said you want to make a difference." As Kurt was pointing out, we really are looking to your generation to have you really have to take charge to a degree because a lot of the older generation are very defensive about what the state of the world is today and that they've done a reasonable job. But as I pointed out, we're doing millions, tens of millions of projects every decade. But what do we have to show for it? Because we're not aiming at where we need to be aiming. We need to set the goals for what's needed without regard to whether we know how to solve the problems or even know what we think they're solvable. As long as we don't try to solve them, they're not solvable. So we've got to dare to try. And so I hope you will be with us on future sessions here. And I hope some of your colleagues will join us. And we want to really move forward on trying to get the Secretary General to call for that global readathon so that we can have something that the UN can point to and say, look at what we accomplished. We have the greatest literacy in the world. And we have got the greatest number of people who are willing to dedicate themselves to working for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Because there are very few people that look at those Sustainable Development Goals and say these are not worth doing, right? Everybody says they're worth doing it, but we're not doing it. And in some cases we say, well, that's the government's job. What do we got to do with that? But if the population doesn't help the government, it doesn't work. The NGOs at the UN, instead of going and lobbying to say, UN, we want you to support our goals and our mission. If they would go and say, UN, how can we help you achieve the Sustainable Development Goals? How can we help the world achieve those? That's, I think, an attitude that we can try to influence. We can try to influence Rotary to be able to say, I'm a big fan of economies of scale. I'm a big fan of the McDonald's model. Right now, Rotary's typical answer is, "Oh, you Rotary clubs out there, go do something good, and then tell us what you did." I think here Rotary would be far better served to go and be able to bring together people that can conceive projects where each local club can plug in and do something great, accomplish something great, because we've provided them with the training materials, with the supply chains, the publicity support, and so forth. In other words, if we look at McDonald's, all those people working at the central headquarters of McDonald's exist there for one reason only, and that's to maximize the success of the McDonald's on the ground. And they don't do that just by going and saying, "Hey, all you McDonald's stores out there, go do the right thing and be successful." They go out there and figure out, what can we do to support the success, to maximize the success of all the local McDonald's operations. And we need in Rotary to have a group that's saying our purpose is to figure out how to help all the Rotary clubs around the world have maximum success in dealing with the major problems facing their communities. Because almost every community in the world is facing the same problems, whether it's sanitation, clean water, infrastructure, education, healthcare. These are common needs that exist everywhere. And to just tell everybody, go do the thing, is assuming everybody's got the skills available in their club, has the resources, and this is an unrealistic expectation. So we can also help make a difference by encouraging Rotary International, and I have a couple of people there that have said, "Hey, let's talk over this." It's been suggested that I might get an opportunity to talk to the board of directors of Rotary about that approach. So we are making some progress, but we can do more. And it all depends. I'm just one person, so it's all of us, and I get a lot of energy from you guys. And hey, with that, that's all I got to say for today. So, anybody want to make a last comment? And otherwise, I'm going to call this meeting to an end. Okay, with that, I thank everybody for your participation today, and I hope to see you. I got some potential issue with next Saturday because I might have to be en route to an airport at the normal meeting time. But otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you.